Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. I'm Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. And yesterday, Coach, we talked about attacking and slamming that slate like Miles Bridges did on Clint Capella over the weekend, and I think that's what we
Yeah.
did.
Oh man, congratulations, dude. I mean, what a great birthday for you yesterday. I mean, you cannot, plan it out that way any better, but massive wins. I'll let you tell our listeners. I'm hoping a lot of our listeners out there were winners as well. We had our discussion yesterday was really spot on. I mean, we hit all the good buy ups and some of the good fades. And man, our members had a day. I didn't get to sleep till like 2:30 last night. Just we were all so fired up in there. But everybody had takedowns all over the place, and we got a lot of questions like, how are you guys building? How are you guys doing this and that? And this, you see our process. I mean, it is transparent. We have a bankroll management and a coach talk process that has to do a lot with contest selection. We go through everything detail by detail on the podcast, and then we dig in and hand build a lineup or two that we take to the big dance, and that really is our recipe of success. So come and join us, because I know a lot of you probably benefited, and we'd love to hear from you from yesterday. But to be in our Discord and see the lineups post and really get all the information is the way to do it. So dfscoachtalk.com. But congratulations again, man. What a birthday, one you won't soon forget. And why don't you tell the listeners the damage that you did, which was beautiful.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was a great birthday, and appreciate all the support and love from you and the family in Discord. Ended up making about 120,000, primarily on FanDuel, and the hybrid lineup that I built and gave out to our members finished first in all the single entry contests. It was 381.2.
Yeah,
It finished fifth in the big 50,000 to first $4 entry on FanDuel. And
beautiful.
so that was the hybrid lineup. I made a pivot on it with one player to go to Elfrid Payton, uh, and that lineup finished first in for 50K. So it was a really fun night on FanDuel, using that lineup with a couple pivots, but just exciting to share that with the members and then see them uh, get those first place finishes in single entries for 7,000 here,
Beautiful.
1,500 there, just all kinds of great winners, returns on investment, because we're not max entering. We're using contest selection to focus on those single entries, and we will put it in the big GPPs as well, because sometimes it hits like last night. But you mentioned the coach talk process, and it really is what we did yesterday, where you and I prepare in the morning separately for the podcast. We dig into 20 variables or more to get ready. Then we do the podcast, we talk it through, then we follow the news through the afternoon, and then we adjust our lineups, and then from there it's not over. You have to continue to follow the news throughout the night, and that's what we had to do last night, because an hour or so into the slate, the news came down that Buddy Hield was going to be out, and he was in all my
Yeah.
lineups on both sites. And thank you to Josh Davis, who was the first to post that information in Discord. So then I started thinking and told folks, check back in 10 or 15 minutes. I'll have updated lineups on FanDuel. And we pivoted to Kevin Porter Jr., and he just smashed against Phoenix. And, that was one of the pieces of information that I'd gone through at some point in the afternoon when Phoenix and Houston played recently. They had that really high scoring game, 133 to 130, which I was a little bit surprised about.
Yeah.
But Phoenix has been involved in some of those higher scoring games recently, and Houston's pace was third in the NBA. That's something we mentioned on the show, like we always do. And so I felt fine about the pivot to Porter from Heald. And so that we also made another pivot along the way. But that's why we ask members to follow along with us in Discord all night, and we send out messages and we alert all of them that there's a change to the lineup, and then you make the pivot during the slate, and that's what allows you to put your best lineup out there and get the best results. So that's
No
what we
doubt.
do, and we don't use optimizers. We just hand build things and go back and forth. And so it's great that we have this process sort of fine tuned now, and we can take advantage of it.
It is awesome, man. And I'll tell you that is the key in the NBA. It's not like that in football or baseball even, but in the NBA, in this climate, and I keep preaching this, and I do one-on-ones as part of memberships with Coach Talk, where I just skull session between me and the member, just head to head, go through everything, talk it through. I've got several scheduled today actually. And what we say is a big part of it is once you have the right contest selection on a slate in the NBA, you've got to follow the news through the evening. And we generally, the second the news breaks, sometimes it is 5 minutes before lock. You just can't help it. But when we get that news, we add everyone and we make our changes. And if you're not following along or at least have alerts set, you're going to miss out. And in the NBA, with the COVID stuff, the injuries, the rest, all the different things that are constantly going on, you just absolutely have to follow that, because last night's a perfect example. We don't make that pivot, then none of that happens. I mean, it's a decent night, but not a takedown night for everybody. And the other thing too is there may be a lot of our listeners saying, well, my bankroll's small. I'm not playing that much. I don't know, if it's worth it to spend the money to jump into Coach Talk. First of all, you can jump in and check us out for as little as $10 for 3 days. And here's the thing, you have to see the ROIs. Check out at DFS Coach Talk on our Twitter. We're talking $17 investments for 1,000. We're talking $35 investment for 7,000. I mean, it's the money's there to be had, and because we're hand building and not trying to ask you to play 150 lineups with 8% of every player, you're going to get the dead nuts, bare bones lineup, and then go out there and hopefully we continue to have these kind of takedown nights. And the sweet part about it is a lot of my meetings today, the one-on-ones, Andrew, are about, okay, now that I've got 7 grand in there, what's the plan? And I'll go over my philosophy, what I've done that's worked as far as how much to draw out, then how to adjust those percentages going forward. Because the last thing you want to do, as we all know, is, don't think, oh man, I'm number one, I've got this. Coach and Andrew are going to be, top 0.0001% every single night. I mean, and then just blurt through all that money and blow through it. Can't do that. It's, again, this is and I know it's a corny statement, but it's the most true one is this is a marathon, not a sprint. And you can lose it as fast as you win it if you don't manage it properly, because there's going to be days where we grind and just break even, days we're going to hit, and then days like yesterday where we just take it down. So just wanted to mention that for our listeners, because they don't get all of that conversation that we have in Discord. But we'd love to have you come and join us for sure.
That's right. So it is a marathon, not a sprint, which means we continue on our journey today. And it's a
Absolutely.
6-game slate in the NBA. 9 of the 12 teams, coach, involved in a back-to-back.
I know it.
Only one total over 230 on BetUS.com.pr, presenting sponsor. So why don't you get us started with the Clippers and Pacers?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, it is a really good strategic day with a lot of moving pieces here. I did want to say, we're going to put this out around lunchtime like we always do, but we are not including that Nets Timberwolves game that's starting at 4 p.m., that makeup game. Didn't see it on slates, just not worth confusing anybody. So, we cover every game all the time, but that one's really not justifiable here. So as you stated, the very first game is a 7:30 Eastern game. It is the Clippers at 37-18 against the Pacers at 25-27. The Clippers are a 3-point favorite on the road. I have the over/under here, Andrew, as jumping up to 231.
Yep.
So there we've got our 230 number there. And then as far as pace, the Clippers are 29th, definitely concerned. They've just gotten more and more and more in a half court set with Kawhi and George, and they're winning, so you can't blame them. Indiana is 7th. Defensively, both above average teams, 10th and 11th. Then the big news here is Kawhi remains out for this game. So, interesting that the Clippers are still a 3-point favorite on the road with Kawhi out. And Beverly and Ibaka were out. They remain out. And the Clippers signed Yogi Ferrell to a 10-day contract, and he's expected to get some backup minutes from what I read in Coach Speak today. And then on the Indiana side, the big news is their center, Turner, Miles Turner, is out. So we look at this game in a couple different directions here. The first thing is it is the highest total of the 6 games, but it's interesting. We've got one team that's super slow, and we have two pretty good defensive teams. That's not usually the formula that you see for the highest over-under game of the night. So this isn't load up the wagon, 3-2 or anything like that for me. And I'm interested to see Mr. Millionaire over here. Now I don't know what to call you anymore. I can't even call you Mr. 100K anymore because you blew by that.
Right.
So, but a couple of things. Paul George going to be massively owned. Deserves to be with Kawhi out. He's a great play. Can you go to some of the ancillary pieces here with the Clips? I mean, you can. Kennard and Morris have sort of been the go-to guys that I've played fairly consistently this year when they're going to play minutes. Morris has been steady. So those guys are in play. On the Indiana side, with Turner out, Sabonis smashed again. The question is, does he do that in this situation against a good Clippers defense that's improved throughout the year and plays slow? That's my concern. So I'm not as much going with the Sabonis buy-up, although his numbers do improve, both rebounds per game and scoring with Turner off the floor. So it's a temptation, but I'm probably not going to go there. This is the first night of a back-to-back for both of these teams, by the way, as well. So, you may get a couple of the big fellas resting a little bit or not quite pushed to the max as they normally would be. Karis LeVert's been fantastic. Really enjoy watching him play, and he is a go-to guy with them. But Paul George is a really strong defender, and that I'm guarantee he's going to be on LeVert. So that gives me a little pause there. Brogdon at times with the low salary has been solid. I think he's a consideration. And there's just a big rotation of the other guys. It's just everybody getting a little bit of a piece of it with Holiday, both Holidays, Sumner, of course, McConnell, on and on. So there's depth with the Pacers, which is not good for DFS, in my opinion. But the Clippers a little bit lighter with especially with guys that have been starting for them in Kawhi, Bev, and Ibaka out. So I like the Clippers side better. Big pace up game for them. Have no problem spending up for George. And like I said, the first two on my list next value-wise are Kennard and Morris, and a possibility of a value play with Brogdon on the other side. So, two guys out of this game, 3 at the very most, but not going to go completely crazy. But it is a good game script.
Yeah, I'm looking at the same guys you are, and I'm looking at possibly playing a couple more. I've noticed that the Pacers, their pace has really increased lately. They've been climbing the charts there, and they've had some really high scoring games lately. Coming off that huge game against Memphis, and they had a big one against Minnesota recently. So that pace,
I think a lot of that is LeVert, by the way. I mean, he sped them up, and they get shots up quicker, and he's not a great defender.
Yeah, and I mean, he helps the offense because it keeps everybody honest. You can't just zero in on Brogdon in terms of the perimeter players.
Yeah.
So I like the game environment here with those key guys out for the Clippers. So Paul George is a big focus for me today. I also like Marcus Morris. You've been on him all season. He had another big game last time out,
Yeah.
over 30 points, still a really good price. So those are my two favorite Clippers. And then with Indiana, I do like Sabonis here. I think he's reasonably priced, and it's a good matchup against Zubats. And he did start at that center spot last game. Goga did not.
Right.
So if he's going to play against Zubats, I like him here. And Brogdon really stepped up again, and his price did not go up the way that it should have. Almost a huge triple double last game, just missed it by a
Yeah.
rebound.
He's a
And
good value now
yeah,
for
and
sure.
he probably will have a better matchup, like you said, than Levert. Probably get Reggie Jackson. So
Right.
I always like the correlation with Brogdon and Sabonis. So I could pair them up in a bunch of lineups and hope this one is a high scoring game despite the risk here since it is a front end for both teams.
Sounds good, man.
All right, game two we have Atlanta and Toronto. It's the other 7:30 tip. Toronto favored by 1.5 at home in Tampa. A 224 total. Front end of a back to back for Toronto. The news here we have those guys still out for Atlanta: Hunter, Reddish, Snell. Gallinari's doubtful tonight, and Trey Young questionable with the calf issue. On the
Yeah.
Toronto side, Van Vliet still out, of course. Now, this is a pretty solid game for me. It's probably one of the top three out of these six tonight. We've got solid pace for Toronto, average defenses, and good offenses. Atlanta's eighth, Toronto's 14th in offensive efficiency. When they played before, 121 to 120, high scoring game. Trey Young did really well. If he sits again like last time, Brandon Goodwin, really nice value play, stepped up with 17, 5, and 8. He's in the
Yeah.
3K range on both sites. I think he'll be a popular value play, and I will look at him here today so we can pay up for guys like Paul George and Sabonis if he starts. If not, then we've got Trey Young back in the mix with Bogdanovich and Herter, and that certainly will take away from both of those guys. And either way, I'm shying away a little bit from my man Bogdan tonight, Coach, because
Wow.
I think he's going to get OG Anunoby defense primarily, and he's really tough and physical. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll pay up for Bogdan today. With Toronto, with Van Vliet out, I do like Lowry here. He's a good price. And Trent also. We've pointed out that shooting guards have done really well against Atlanta recently. Remember, Grayson Allen scored 30 points against them, and then Levine had
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
So, and Trent,
And we
who's,
called that second one
yeah,
too.
we were on Levine. And Trent, he's had some real strong games here recently, stepping up.
He's great.
So, nice mid-tier guy here to get in the lineup. And I could look at one other Toronto guy here, Siakam or Boucher. Boucher, surprisingly to me, had 29 and 9 against Atlanta and Capella last time they met up. He came off the bench that day. He's been starting recently.
Yeah.
He's a little pricey for me. I probably would lean Siakam, even though he's more expensive. But I do prefer these Toronto guards, so that's my big focus here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on the nose. I mean, the key is the Trey Young news because that's a domino effect for me. I mean, if he plays, um, then it definitely lessens the Bogdanovich Herter jump. If he sits, I'm going to play Bogdanovich in that scenario, even if he does face some Anunoby defense, and Herter then would come into play for me as well. If he plays, I scripted it the same way. I think Anunoby guards Bogdanovich. Trent will probably guard Herter. In that situation, I like Herter a little bit. You know me, I'm not a Herter guy, but
Right?
he's getting those minutes with. I mean, you just think of, and you mentioned them, but it's not anything to look at lightly. Collins, Dunn, Hunter, Snell, and Reddish, those five guys would be in their top 8-man rotation. So they're playing very shorthanded. And with those guys out, I mean, it's Herder takes a huge role because you're not going to get a breakthrough ceiling game from Solomon Hill. He's just a plug and play in guy for Atlanta to try to eat minutes and do some things. And Capella's, what he gets is on alley oops and putbacks. So every offensive play they're going to run basically, especially with Gallo more than likely out, is just there's a ton of shots for Young, Bogdanovich, and Herder, just a bunch of them. So I think one of those guards really needs to be in your lineup today, and it's going to depend on that Trae Young news. So I'm going to watch that closely, but I really think Toronto's going to give up some perimeter stuff here. On the Toronto side, I like both guards here. I like Lowry and Trent. I think they both could play very well. Again, we know the perimeter defense has been shaky for Atlanta at best. I mean, to not have their stoppers and Snell and Hunter and all these guys that are their perimeter defenders, they're just getting smoked. And I think Lowry and Trent, I like the guards just like you better than the bigs. I think you're going to see Siakam and Boucher get a ton of ownership, and I don't think it's a bad move, but they're expensive, and you got to pick your spots here. And I'd rather go with the guards in this game in this matchup, and be a little bit different than I think what you're going to see in the industry. And I know Boucher did well against Capella last time, but there were some odd rotations there. Capella was playing more against Baines in that game. I took them off the floor on basketballreference.com and moved them around. And Boucher got, lucky that he didn't have to go against Capella that much. He went against, it was a combination, but it was Collins dumping down a play center and just a couple of different configurations where he didn't have to go nose to nose with Capella. So that's enough for me to fade him. Siakam's always a possibility for me just because he can break a slate. But Solomon Hill, the old guy he's a grabber, a pusher, and he's going to pound on Siakam a lot. And I think that's why I like the guard. So like the game, love the guards on both sides. I will probably have 2 or 3 guys from this game that can shoot it and knock down some threes for us.
Yeah, good point on Boucher there. And I want to add something on Solomon Hill, actually. If
Mm-hmm.
Gallinari is out,
I
then
think he will be, by the way.
I'll look at him as a potential value play. He did play 37 minutes
I
the
know.
last one with Gallinari out and hit value, and he's that kind of guy where if he's out there that long, he can do enough to hit value.
Well, he'll shoot the corner 3 all day long. I mean, if you leave him open, and so that's probably a good consideration. It's just painful watching at times
Right. All
because
right,
he does not look like he's going to blow it up.
that's right. All right, you got game 3, coach.
Okay, game 3, and it's not a really great game. I've got who is this?
Lakers and Hornets.
Lakers and Hornets. Yep. I have ESPN up. Oh, you know what threw me off? That stupid Nets Timberwolves game's
right.
on there. Okay. The Lakers Hornets. Yuck. It's Charlotte -2, so that's all right. 207.5 though. I mean, by far the basement number. You've got the pace 11th and 16th and 15th respectively. So middle of the road. Lakers remaining the number 1 defensive efficient team in the league, and Charlotte 16th, right in the middle of the pack. Injury news here: you got Poku out, then the 4 key guys for Oklahoma City remain out, and we know it's Shea
Oh,
and
we're
then
still
Paul.
you're jumping to game 4. That was
Did
my
I
game.
really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Come
I'm
back
off
to the
base.
Lakers and Hornets.
See, you can't throw an afternoon game in here for me. I'm like, an autistic coach. I need it that I can't have things split around for me. All right, so let's go back to we do have the 207.5. The pace and defense is correct. As far as the injuries, we've got McKinney probable. He's not much of a player, but Kuzma's the news. He's questionable. We need to know what the heck is Kuzma going to do? Not that I want to play him because I think he's a dud, but it still affects the rotation in the minutes. On the Charlotte side, PJ Washington is probable, and the wonderful threesome, of course, of Ball, Hayward, and Monk, three of the top 7 rotation for the Hornets, are out. So we go to this game, take a look, and see, is there anything, or is this just a dead pass game? You know, I looked at this for a while. I would like to see what the Kuzma news is, because there is some value here that can be had. First of all, I think Andre Drummond is in consideration for me. I know that's painful, but, he should have his way on the inside. If PJ's starting at center, which we're anticipating, and he's not 100%, Drummond, it doesn't take him long to get, 20 and 15. So he is in my player pool today, and I know it's painful because, you don't know exactly what to expect there, but I think he deserves to be, because he is a points per minute monster when he's in a mismatch situation. And Charlotte, they're using Zeller and Biombo sort of out of the mix. Zeller coming off the bench, still not a great defender, nothing to write home about there. But I do think after Drummond, which would be a bit of paying a little higher for him than I'd like, you have the potential of the backcourt for Charlotte to at least discuss. With those guys out, where's all the offense going to come from? It's Devontae and Terry Rozier in the backcourt. So, a pick and choose with one of those two guys, I don't think it's a bad idea. I know Rozier's a little overpriced, but, somebody's got to score the ball. And, this game's probably going to end up very likely, 96, 94 or something like that. But don't want a lot of exposure here, but I will look at Drummond and possibly one of the Hornet guards.
Yeah, similar for me. Drummond, probably the starter for the Lakers I'd be most interested in. If Kuzma sits, then guys like Talen Horton-Tucker and Caruso get a bit of a boost and could come into play.
Yeah.
On the Charlotte side, Jalen McDaniels is cheap on DraftKings. He's much more expensive on FanDuel. There's a possibility. And then on the bench, I want to mention Brad Wanamaker. Three
Yeah.
straight games, he's had 7x or better return. Getting 23 to 28 minutes, like you said, with Monk out, Hayward out, he's kind of that key guy off the bench, LaMelo as well. So he's
Yeah.
that third guard that's mixing in, and he's only 3,800 on DraftKings. So there's a value guard potentially. If we don't have Brandon Goodwin value for Atlanta, we may have Wanamaker as a guy to get in the mix and consider, especially in a GPP.
I like that. I think it's a good value play on this slate.
All right, let's go to the second half of the slate. OKC and Utah tip off at 9 o'clock. Big favorites for Utah, 16.5.
I already told you who's out for Oklahoma City.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, 223 total. Poku and Muscala out. A front end of a back-to-back for the Thunder. Second night for Utah after that high-scoring loss to the Wizards. And we have the great defense of Utah. They're fourth. Great offense. They're third against Oklahoma City, last in the league now offensively in terms of offensive efficiency. So that's why you've got Utah as the huge favorite here.
16.5
How about
is the
that,
latest
huh?
number?
Yep.
Good Lord.
These teams played way back at the beginning of the season. A lot of changes in the starting lineup. But the one key constant for me is that Dort played that day against Donovan Mitchell. And Dort actually outscored Mitchell. Mitchell,
Wow.
only 20 points, 8 of 23 shooting, 2 of 10 from three-point land. We talk all the time about Dort's defense. So although Mitchell was the man for us last night, I'm probably going to fade him primarily here because of Dort and consider Dort on the other side. He's back in the mix now, minutes increasing. He's a fine price on both sites. So he's my favorite player in this game. The other guys for OKC, with Poku out, I'm thinking Kenrich Williams might start. He's a kind of a glue guy, value guy, mid
Right.
tier. He could make a lineup. Ty Jerome potentially off the bench. Not my favorite value play, but he's probably the next guy I would consider. Tony Bradley, man, another big game last time out. 16 and 14 off the bench in 25
Yeah.
minutes.
He's been really good.
Yeah. So I probably won't go with Moses Brown here because of Gobert. Bradley is decent price on DraftKings. He is expensive now on FanDuel, so I don't think I would play him there. And then with Utah, we have Clarkson questionable again, but we'll have Conley back in the mix. So not as much value on the
Right.
Utah side. That's another reason why I'm going to shy away from Donovan Mitchell. You could still look at Ingles. He certainly gets the benefit with Clarkson out. He's a fine price. So that's probably the only place I would look on the Utah side.
Yeah, I this is my stay away game. I mean, 16 and a half, Utah's pissed because they lost last night and they get their point guard back. Oklahoma City, I mean, the wheels had to come off at some point here. I mean, it's just they're playing literally, and we talk about it all the time. A G League and free agent kind of bunch of misfits, and they've played well considering, but this is just too much to ask in Utah. Shorthanded. I just I know the Thunder guys are a little bit of blowout proof. Maladon, even Dort, Baisley, some Kenrich Williams. Those guys are all going to probably get minutes, even if they're down 25 or 30 points. So, I mean, if you want to try to go there, you can. It's just, the Thunder, that rotation, even though it's smaller because of all the guys out, they're still sharing the ball, like you said. The whole thing with Brown now and Bradley, it's just a little bit concerning. Baisley's going to get those minutes, but is it going to be enough? Ty Jerome off the bench. I mean, it's like a team by committee of an 8-man rotation, and I don't have the confidence in any one of those guys really to say, okay, this is great value here. Especially when you look at what are the matchups going to be. I think, Royce O'Neal is their best defender, Utah. I mean, it's very simple. Who does he guard? That's the question. He could guard 3 or 4 of these guys. I personally think he may guard Dort, and that's my concern there. So I'm going to stay away from this game, even on the Utah side. I know, with when Clarkson doesn't play and he is doubtful, Ingles is really the best guy to go to. But it's the second night of a back-to-back. It's first night for Oklahoma City. I just hate the feel of this game for 5 of the 6 reasons we usually play games. It goes the other way in this game. So I'm ready to move on down the road to the next one.
Sounds good.
And it's Miami Phoenix, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to screw it up again and try to play Minnesota for the 10th time.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to say before we get to this after hour slate, if you're in Discord with us, we offer 2 slates basically every night on all of 4 of our sports. Like today, we've got an awesome baseball card where we, in the afternoon, that we're providing a FanDuel clipboard. We're providing, a DraftKings clipboard, a FanDuel full lineup, Yahoo full lineup, and we do a hybrid, which we play in our cash games and we play in our single entry. And just like the one that took all the money last night, Andrews, I posted it for him. He had sent it over, and I put in there the birthday boy hybrid. So we'll have to use that one going forward on birthdays for sure. And that lineup is the one that, that Andrew spoke of earlier. We talk about it. We go through all our preps. We walk through them in the show. We follow in Discord. Then we follow the news in case there's any swaps during the slate. So all of those things come into play. We'd love to have you join us. And then, for example, in basketball, we're doing the main 6-game slate. And then these 2 games that are coming up, we'll do an after-hours slate as well. So we're providing all those things. The other thing is, if you join us, you get all 4 of our sports. We focus and are try to be the best of the best in basketball, football, baseball, and golf. And that's where we put all of our pro attention and everything else that we're doing. So you're going to get that with any of our memberships. You get all 4 sports, all the lineups, all the content, all the podcasts, etc. So we would love to have you. You could sign up at dfscoachtalk.com. You can check us out on Twitter. Go through there at DFS Coach Talk. We still have a great package through BetUS, one of our partners, betus.com.pa. You can go there, deposit it for the first time. If you're a first-time depositor, $149 into your account, which you can bet on BetUS. You let us know at DFS Coach Talk, shoot us a message. You get a free membership until June 1st, where you're scot-free with us, and you get to use that cash that you deposited in BetUS. Can't beat the deal. Just go to betus.com.pa, sign up with the promo code CoachTalk, or you can go through us. We'll help you navigate that and get signed up as well. The other thing is, we have some phenomenal partners. We're going to start talking about them as they've stepped forward. Monkey Knife Fight is fantastic. They have a great promo code going right now that they're using. Coach Talk, again, all one word, no space, is your promo code for Monkey Knife Fight. If you go to our website and you look at all of our sponsors and all of our partners, you'll see we have a promo code set for all of our major partners. So take advantage of those, because you're getting a lot of 50% match, 100% match, and you'll see the promo codes and the links right there on our website. So enjoy that for sure. All right. Last thing I want to say, so I don't forget at the end, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, please take a second. This is very important to us. This is our only ask of the day. Hit the thumbs up, like this YouTube, subscribe to our channel, click the little alert button up in the corner. That really, really helps us. We have tons of listeners. Probably about a third of you have subscribed to us. Take a second, click that button, and if you hit the alert, at least you know when our podcast posts. And today, for example, we have this NBA podcast posting, then we have a PGA podcast posting later this afternoon. So rather than have to check and go back and forth, just hit that alert button and it'll let you know. And if you're listening to us audio-wise, which a lot of people have decided they can't look at Andrew and I's mug anymore, and they want to just jump on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeart, we're everywhere. All we ask there is you take a second, give us a 5 stars, a thumbs up. We randomly go through those reviews and give out 3-day passes to some lucky winners. So just take that extra second, either on the way in or out, hit that, and we'd really, really appreciate it. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I got it all done in one shot. Miami Heat 28-25, Phoenix Suns 38-15. How about the Suns, man? We've got Miami on a first night and Phoenix on a second night. So this is a wild night with all these back-to-backers. It is Phoenix minus only 3 at home, which is a low number. 216.5 is the over-under. Here's the concern I have, Andrew, and I can't wait. I really am interested in your breakdown of this game. They're 27th and 26th in pace. So you've got 2 terrific defensive teams. How about 5th and 6th in defensive efficiency?
Right.
So when we say the perfect storm, we've got the opposite of the perfect storm here. We have great defense, terrible pace, and 2 really good teams with a low total. So that's scary. We know Oladipo and Okpala remain out for Miami. Vincent, who's really not in the rotation anymore, is probable. And Phoenix, who's been able to stay the healthiest of anybody, them in Utah, only have Nader out. Everybody else is in. So, I can be fairly brief with this one. I want to watch this game. I think it's It probably will be the most well played game of the night and very competitive. The big question is, can you get enough possessions and enough DFS points to make a difference in your overall lineup? And I question that a bit. I think that there's such good defense on both sides. Mikal Bridges is an under appreciated defender, and he's gonna. I'm sure he'll guard Jimmy buckets, and it makes a difference. He's a really good defender. You got the Spider-Man versus Spider-Man thing almost with Crowder and Ariza. They're both the same kind of you know great defense, 3-and-D kind of guys. Crowder playing against the team that he was on, where Miami really wanted to keep him and just couldn't free up enough money to re-sign him. So the dude was unconscious yesterday. I watched all 8 of his threes go in because I had him in my after hours lineup last night, and that was in the first half. I think that but those two I think counteract each other. The only spot that I'm interested in this game, and it's going to be an odd one, Andrew, and it's probably going to be very contrarian. I think Bam is a good play, and the reason I like Bam is, Ayton's more of a stand-up center and in the paint center. Bam is going to stretch it to 15 feet, and with just his athleticism, he's going to be able to move, I think, past Ayton, and then they'll bring some of the bench guys in. He'll scorch Saric. So Bam is the guy that I'm looking at here in this game as my most interesting guy. On the Phoenix side, Chris Paul rises up for these games, and again, good defense on the Miami side, but I'm going to consider him. I really wouldn't mind having Bam and Paul. I just don't know if I can make it work salary-wise, but I'm not going deep in this game at all. It's either going to be one of those two or both if I can fit them. And I just think there's too much of a rotation of the other guys and too much defense being played. By the way, I think Jimmy Butler guards Devin Booker, and that's why he didn't come up in my conversation. So what do you think, man?
Yeah, pretty similar. It's just not a great game here for the main slate, so I won't have much exposure here. On the Miami side, when they met up before, Nunn scored 25, did pretty well against Chris Paul, but Dragic did not play that game. And we know that when Nunn, Dragic, and Hero are out there, it takes a bit away from all of them. They're all pretty good prices, so I think if I had to play somebody on Miami, it would be one of those 3 guys. But sometimes it's hard to predict which one is going to smash because Dragic and Hero, when they're coming off the bench, they really share the usage, and it can just be a matter of who got open on that particular night. So not really excited about these Miami guys. And then with Phoenix, pretty similar. Don't have a lot of interest in the guys here on the main slate. I was a little bit surprised to notice that Ayton got 17 and 16 against Bam in the first matchup, and there's a chance I would go with him just because he's cheaper than Bam, because I'm not overly thrilled with some of the center options here tonight. So he's a possibility, but not my first choice. So mostly a pass game for me.
Very good. Finish us up, man.
Okay, Boston and Portland. Fun matchup here. Second game on TNT. Portland favored by 1, and we got a nice high total here of 228.
229 now. It's
okay,
going
hey,
up.
It's going up.
Get that money out there.
Get it now. These teams are both a little bit below average in pace, but offensively, Boston 12th, Portland 7th, and we know that Portland is bad defensively. They're 29th. So on this slate, it's one of the better game environments. The news here, we've got Fournier, who I'm going to say is doubtful. He's been out for a bit. On the Portland side, Nurkic and Kanter both got a little bit banged up in the last one, but I'm expecting as of now that they'll both play. Is that what you have as well, Coach?
I do. I think they're both in, and I think they probably split minutes to just try to keep each other healthy. So not in play for me.
Yeah. So with the Boston side, Kemba Walker's in play for me with the good matchup against the Portland backcourt. Also looking at the bigs here, and Robert Williams is a nice price now, but he has gotten his minutes reduced a little bit with Tristan Thompson coming off the bench.
Yeah.
They've been sort of like 28 and 20 right around there. So not sure if I'll pay up for Robert Williams with Tristan Thompson in the mix. And you could go with a one-off with one of the other Boston starters, but I think I'm leaning mostly towards Kemba tonight on the main slate. You could play Tristan Thompson if you really wanted a value center because he'll get that matchup against Cantor most likely off the bench, and that's a good one for Tristan. He can handle that. And then with Portland, there's nobody who I'm just fired up to play. I think they all are playable. I would probably avoid Lillard the most if I don't think I want to spend up for him. In the last 5 games, he's only gone over 40 fantasy points once. So
Yeah.
he just hasn't had the ceiling games lately with C.J. McCollum back in the mix. So he's a consideration possibly on the after hours slate, but on the main slate, I'm not looking to pay up for him. Even though it's a high total, decent game for the main slate, I just think I'm more interested in spending up in that first game, the Clippers and Pacers. More of my exposure here will just be in that after hours slate.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. This game, the Portland team is just the face of it has changed so much. With McCollum returning from injury and the trade for Norman Powell, Powell is a more dominant player than Trent. They're both playing great in both spots, but Powell is more of a needs the ball, going to make things happen on that side. And it's just what's happened is you've got Nurkic and Kanter splitting minutes, and they both are very apt at center. They can both get it done, so they get the ball. Covington's taking more threes and more involved, and now you have a three basically shooting guard with Lillard, McCollum, Powell. All three guys are just dead eye shooters that all take shots. So I think it's not that Lillard's playing worse. It's just, there were days where they didn't have Powell yet in the trade and McCollum was out and it was, Lillard or bust. But that has completely changed. And they're actually a better team for it. They have lost some games recently, but I think that, once they get continuity, this team is dangerous in the playoffs for sure. And again, from the DFS side, I agree with you, though. I don't want to spend up for Lillard. McCollum's still too expensive. And, Powell at times is a third or fourth option. I love the guy, but he's not, again, a lot of his salary was built up when all the Toronto guys were out. Van Vliet and Lowry were out, and Powell it was him or Siakam or bust, and he was getting all that usage. So I'm not going to go on the Portland side very much here at all. On the Boston side, I do have an interest in a few guys, and I'd like you to counterpoint this with me here because you're the Boston expert. I think I really do think that Smart and Brown are even a better play than Kemba. The thing with Kemba that bothers me is, they're using their backups a lot at the point, and Pritchard and company. I just always feel like they're protecting Kemba on the minutes, and that he doesn't get that full Kemba run that we're used to. But I know his price is decent. The guys, though, I figure Smart's going to play monster minutes because he's going to have Lillard, and then when Lillard goes out in that first rotation, he'll switch over to McCollum. So they need him on the floor. And then Jaylen Brown might be the wild card. He's been hot. When he's on a roll, he may have the worst defender on him from the other side, because I think Covington is going to drape Tatum. And then again, I'm with you. I don't want to split at center on either side. So give me your input on if you think if I did go after the duo of Smart and Brown, are they both possible 6, 7X guys like I'm thinking?
I think they are. I mean, it's really a pretty solid matchup across the board, 1, 2, and 3 against Portland. You want to
Yeah.
avoid Covington, and I agree. I think Tatum will face Covington the most, and Jalen is more of that guy who can give you 50 fantasy points. So, I agree. Looking at Kemba, it's more of a hope he gets his full run and is pushing for 40 fantasy points. And I'm glad you mentioned the minutes and the game environment here because I made a note. Portland, they have not played since Sunday, and they're off again until Friday. So the
Wow.
one thing I like here about them is they should get full run. And same thing with Boston. It's
Yeah,
an
it's
it's
an
an
island game.
island game for them, and they have been babying Kemba a little bit. But when it's an island game, this is your real chance with Kemba, and it's a great matchup. So that's why I'm interested in him. But I wouldn't argue against a play of Smart or Jalen Brown either.
And here's the final reason. So I saved this for the counterpoint in case you disagreed with me, but we're on the same page always. Fournier's probably not going to play, and
Right.
that dude is a volume shooter. Those
Exactly.
shots are going to go to those guards. I think Smart and Brown and maybe Walker too. So that is huge. Now I have Fournier listed as questionable. You have him as doubtful. So we need to follow the news on that because everything blows up. Smart and Brown right down the toilet if Fournier plays for me because he's going to take 15, 20 shots if he can against a Portland team that doesn't defend. So keep an eye on that. I think, I'm going to have to put the Celtics green on tonight, which is unusual for me because they may be the hammer in that late night sweat game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. In that after hours game, slate will have some Celtics out there for sure. So
I'm
hope
going to have to
everyone.
post the leprechaun up there, man.
Yeah, right. Hope everyone enjoyed that 6 game breakdown. Like Coach said, if you have any questions, reach out to us on Twitter at DFS CoachTalk. You can follow the coach at JoeSarvadi. You can follow me at Language Olympic. And we'll be back again tomorrow for another NBA podcast. Any final thoughts, Coach?
You're the man. Congratulations again to you and all our members that crushed it, and any listeners that we don't know of. Man, just keep listening, keep grinding, stick with Coach Talk, stick with the process. We're going to have lots of nights like last night, lots of them. So great
Absolutely.
job, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate it, and definitely psyched for all of our members and listeners who had a strong night as well. So we're going to build for it again tonight and keep on rolling. So we appreciate all your support. On behalf of the coach and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. We'll see you tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.